Welcome back. Today in our Sunday Spotlight, the superstitions and rituals and some odd uses for facial hair by athletes. Local author Aug Stone writes about them in his new book, Sporting Mustaches. Aug Stone is joining me today in Studio A. Welcome.
Thanks very much, Eric.
Now, am I supposed to say mustaches, or do I have to be like moustaches or something? How do you want people to say it?
Mustaches.
All right, just regular.
There's an Italian in the story, so any accent you want to go with.
So I told you, I read the book. It's fantastic. And it is 100% not what I was expecting when I opened it. I was expecting nonfiction, telling me about people with mustaches in sports. It is a series of short stories. One more, I don't want to say bizarre, but fantastic than the next. Yeah. And all of them involve some type of sport. Mm-hmm. And some type of facial hair. Yeah. And that's the theme. But after that, I mean, there's a tug of war over a zoning dispute. There's chess. There's an archer who holds his mustache hair in his hands while he shoots archery. There's the three-face race, which is like a three-legged race, but when you have long facial hair. How did you come up with this?
Well, it all started, a lot for me comes from the pun. I thought of sporting mustaches, and I was like, all right, what can I do with this? You know, have guys with incredibly long facial hair, wrapping them around baseball bats or hockey sticks. And then, like you said, the tug of war story, they tie it into the competition rope, which always makes me wince whenever I think of it. And then, of course, it came from real life stuff, too, like the 1978 World Chess Championships. There was two Russians competing, and I found an article about this online. I loved it. They accused each other of using black magic and psychic warfare against each other. And I thought, oh, that's just so fantastic. How can I work that into a story about mustaches?
And so that's one of the sporting events that's in here is based on that. I loved the baseball story, which is something that we see. Rich, we see it. I'm a Mets fan, unfortunately. And earlier in the season, Pete Alonso was in a slump and he shaved his beard off. He came in clean shaven one day. You have a similar thing, but in reverse. The guy grew some facial hair, and all of a sudden his bad luck and his low batting average turned around. Yeah,
that was the thing of it. I was thinking of good luck charms and a mustache as a good luck charm, and then I was steamroll with that. Brought me to the idea of curses. I said it in Cleveland because Cleveland has a very famous sports curse. But there were also little things in the story as well, like I said it in the Hungarian section of Cleveland in the 50s, big Hungarian population there. And I named one of the characters is Coach Kiss, which is a Hungarian last name, but that allowed me the opportunity to work in lots of, I was a huge Kiss fan growing up, dressed up as them for Halloween, to work in like references to their song titles and stuff. And I do that a lot throughout the book, referencing many bands, the Beatles, the Kinks, the Police, Van Halen, my first love. There's a couple of deep dives of Van Halen in there that I don't expect anybody to get, but when I do the readings, I always point that out. I was like, oh, this comes from a lyric off Women and Children First, which, is a lot of fun, but I don't expect the average reader to get it.
That's part of your world. You're a comedian, you're a musician, you're an author, you have other books published. What is it that brings this part of you out and makes you want to share it with others?
The joy of it, really. My last book was based on my best friend and I used to make up fake bands to ask for at record stores when we were in high school. And I just remember some hilarious interactions of asking, and then the clerk would believe us, then go off to check, and we'd have to hold in the laughter. And it was that feeling of joy that we just created something so ridiculous. And the last book, I make up lots of fake bands like that, and it's just like, I think what I hope shines through is just a feeling of a love of all these things that go into the music, the films. There's a ton of Burt Reynolds references in the book, of course.
Well, if you got a mustache book, you got to have some Burt Reynolds.
And I think just making people laugh, like the idea. When I've done the readings and people have laughed at those references, is always just a feeling of joy that I try to bring about in my work.
Now, you are a Connecticut kid, Stratford born and raised.
Yep.
Tell us about that. Because one thing I noticed that in addition to just mustaches, there was sort of a theme of like the coming of age of the mustache. There were a couple of the stories that had somebody like suddenly with that peach fuzz on their prepubescent upper lip, and that's sort of part of a journey, I guess, right? That at some point there is that mustache and maybe it signals something.
Yeah, I've never been particularly hirsute. There's a picture in the back of the book of me with a big 70s X-Task. I had a beard about 10 years ago, which is the first time I was ever really able to grow it out. And I really liked it. My niece at the time, she was 5, and she hated it. And I remember being over at my sister's for dinner one night, and she just reached across the table and grabbed my face and yelled into it, "You are not handsome!" And it was just a huge shock to the ego. But I remember, like, growing up, like, especially like junior high, going into high school, when you'd get that first bit of hair and like just shaving our faces to like try and make it come back in thicker. It was always a big talking point, you know, with me and my friends. Like, yeah.
So who do you hope reads this book?
Everybody. I think it's, you know, for sports fans, for music fans. I think it's going to make a great Father's Day gift. We're, you know, pushing bookstores with that to display it because it does have a really great cover, I think, and combining the mustache and sports. Obviously comedy fans as well. I tried to make every story as funny as I could possibly make it, put as many jokes in as I can.
Well, I know my cousin does the Movember every year with Crazy Mustaches.
Yeah.
This is going directly to him.
Awesome.
We have about 30 seconds left. Tell me about, there's some places people can come to see you and sign some books.
Yeah, June 8th, the next 2 Saturdays. June 8th, I'm at Barrett Books in Darien, and then June 15th, the day before Father's Day, I'm at Barnes & Noble in Milford. I'm looking forward to both.
And if you're last minute, you need a Father's Day gift, you can come there, get the book, and get it signed by the author.
Signed, yeah.
All right, I appreciate it. The book was great. It's not a long read because it's all those, you know, kind of goofy stories, and you kind of get into them, and it's cool. You see the picture of it there, Sporting Mustaches. It is, of course, by Aug Stone. You can find it at your favorite bookstore or online. Aug, we appreciate you coming.
Hey, thanks so much for having me.
All right, coming up, not coming up, the show's over, but I got to tell you something first. There's a quick update we have for you on a segment we did last week. We are happy to report that the efforts to raise money to fully fund that service dog for U.S. Army Sergeant Justin Prosser were successful. Sergeant Prosser and his dog Aster and WTIC Radio's Brian Shachtman all were on our program last week to talk about that effort, part of WTIC's Pets for Patriots. Well, Brian tells us that more than the needed $25,000 was raised. Sergeant Prosser tells us that Aster has been especially helpful, waking him up from service-related night terrors. He said it changed his life. Thank you to all who donated, especially our CT24 viewers. That is CT24 for this week. CBS Sunday Morning is coming up next. Have a great rest of your weekend. We'll meet you back here in Studio A next Sunday morning.